Hey everyone, my name is Yuliya Gumenyuk, and today's City of the Day presentation that I'll be talking about is on Vancouver, and we'll focus on smart growth. So this is my overview, and we're going to begin with talking about the location of Vancouver. So Vancouver is a city in Canada, and Canada is divided into provinces. The province that it's located in is called British Columbia, and it's located in the lower mainland region of this province. It's the largest city in its province and the third largest in Canada, and it will be important in Canada's overall economy. And as you can see on the image, Vancouver borders the US city Point Roberts, and it's pretty close to Seattle. It's like around 140 miles away from Seattle. So Vancouver is a coastal seaport area, and as you can see by the image, on the north side is the English Bay, and to the south is the Fraser River, and Vancouver is only 44 square miles. So both this geographic location and its area will affect its development. So these are the demographics of Vancouver. Its city population was at around 630,000 as of 2016 census. Almost half of the population is Canadians of European descent, while 27 are of Chinese descent, and other minority groups make up the rest of the population. The median age in Vancouver is around 38 years old. And the female to male ratio is about 1:1, as well as the single to married ratio is also close to 1:1. So moving on to the economy and housing in Vancouver, most of its economy is dependent on trade because it's a port city. And in 2017, Vancouver had a GPD of 137 billion Canadian dollars, and that's equal to around 109 billion US dollars. And it had a growth rate of 4.5%. And Vancouver makes up around 7.5% of Canada's overall economy. So it's a pretty important city. Other things its economy also depends on is like film and TV. If you've ever watched like a CW show or other American shows, a lot of them are filmed in Vancouver. So the median household income in Vancouver is around $65,000. And around 20% of households are actually above this median. And as of 2016 census, the employment rate was 63.9%. And between the 2011 and 2016 census, it actually went up by 1.4%. So the housing price in Vancouver is pretty high. The average price of a standalone house is around 1.5 million, and the average rent is 1,500 to 1,600 monthly. So the ratio of renters to homeowners is almost 1:1, and the most popular home in Vancouver is a one-bedroom. So now let's talk about transportation and the streets in Vancouver. The streets are planned in a grid-like manner, kind of similar to America, and the streets are very narrow because they want to promote the use of public transit and less use of cars. But there's still about 45% of Vancouver that are vehicle owners, and 50% use public transportation to get to work. And public transportation is pretty affordable and effective in Vancouver. They have buses, electric trolleys, light rail, out of a train service, and a ferry service. And they also want to promote use of bikes. So currently they have around 325 kilometers of bike route. So some notable places to visit in Vancouver are Stanley Park, which is the largest park in Vancouver. It's located in downtown. Granville Island, which has a big market, and the Grouse Mountain, which provides a lot of snow-related activities for tourists. So of course, the area that is now Vancouver was first inhabited by natives, and then later was discovered by Europeans who started to slowly move into the area. And by 1827, a port was created because the geographical location of the area with its natural resources and access to water was great for trade. And as trade came to grow, a lot of more Europeans came to the area. So by the 1850s, most of the inhabitants in Vancouver were of European descent. And then in the next decade, more people came because of the gold rush. So most of them were miners from California. And then by the 1870s, Greenville, which was a small settlement, was actually developed. And it's now the part that is downtown Vancouver. And only in 1885 did this development of the city start. So the development of the city was actually greatly influenced by American development at the time. In 1885, the Canadian Pacific Railway, the president of which was William Van Horn, who was an American, was given a big land grant by the Crown because they wanted him to extend the rail towards Greenville. And this area right here is actually the grant that was given to him. It's a really big amount of the city area. And so when he developed the railway, after that, he also developed the grid-like street planning of Vancouver. So some other notable areas of development were Shaughnessy Heights, which is a neighborhood for the wealthy, and Cole Harbor, which was involved in 120 years of development and later would include ideas of Vancouverism. So recent planning issues in Vancouver include affordable housing and traffic because of the dependence on cars. And the way that the government fights these is that they have introduced a project called Housing Vancouver, which is a 10-year project that started in 2019, and it's executed by Metro Vancouver Housing Corporation, which has committed $190 million to create housing. And 30% of it would be rent geared to income housing, and the rest would be low end of market housing. And currently they have like 49 sites and provide over 3,500 units of housing to support almost 10,000 tenants. And then to fight traffic and use of cars, the government has partnered up with Chance Lake, Hub Cycling, and Better Environmentally Sound Transportation to promote and encourage use of public transit and bikes and walking. So one of the main topics of this week is smart growth, and we're going to look at how it has worked in Vancouver's development. So smart growth is used to fight urban sprawl, and we know that urban sprawl is when there's low density land consuming development. Smart growth focuses on basically the opposite, where it's high density mixed use development with public transportation and pedestrian friendly zones. So Vancouver, with these ideas, it focuses on building vertically instead of outward, like urban sprawl. And this made it possible to Vancouver because of the Constitution Act of 1867. So Canada, just like the US, its land is regulated by zoning, but this act gives the provinces the power over laws related to property and municipalities within the jurisdiction. So it made it easier for metropolitan areas in Canada to promote smart growth. Vancouver started to implement smart growth ideas in 1929 with the idea of complete community neighborhoods. So these are basically neighborhoods that had everything, where residents could live, work, shop, educate, and have entertainment to maintain health, all could be accessed through either public transportation or walking. In 1960s, they became more high density when there was an influx of immigrants from Asia. And then in 1968 through 1972, the city stopped plans of making freeways. And also, in addition, they also chose not to implement renewal projects and limited sprawl to only 48% of the land, while the rest became protected under an order of agricultural area. And then in 1972, the LRSP was written down. And since the 1980s, Vancouver has went by ideas of Vancouverism. So the reason why Vancouver has no freeways in its city is because of a story that happened in 1968. In the early 1960s, Vancouver started developing its freeways following the example of San Francisco. By 1965, they demolished 15 city blocks for the construction. And by 1968, they had planned to demolish 600 more homes. One of these homes was owned by Mayor Lee Chan. She didn't want to lose her home, so she started walking around the neighborhood asking for people to sign her petition and to join the protest. She was able to gather 800 people for the protest, and with their support, they were able to get a lawyer. His name was Mark Harcourt, and he negotiated with the government to end the project. So this quote that you can see on the bottom of this page by Mark Harcourt says that the Strathcona Property Owners and Tenants Association, which was created by these protesters, is the single most significant reason why Vancouver is such a profoundly livable city today. Because they were able to stop the creation of freeways in the city, they put Vancouver away from the ideas of urban sprawl. So after Vancouver stopped the promotion of freeways in the city, they created the 1972 Livable Region Strategic Plan, which had four main goals. Commitment to mass transit, which would promote the use of public transportation by people. Number two was to create compact regions, which is done through creating high density neighborhoods. Number three was to promote complete communities, which is achieved through both one and two. In complete communities, anything could be reached through the use of public transportation or walking. And lastly, the goal of protecting green zones. Vancouver is really big on protecting its nature and the mountains that surround it. So Vancouver has become an example city because of its unique development. Vancouverism is a term that arose because of the city's planning that was led by ideas of smart growth. So Vancouverism refers to like having many parks, walkable streets, and public spaces in an area, and creating a safe and healthy and inviting city. So currently, Vancouver has become the city with the lowest greenhouse gas emissions in North America. And like over 90% of its energy is actually renewable energy that comes from hydroelectricity. And Vancouverism is achieved in Vancouver through the building of point towers, which are tower apartments that have a base of townhouses or rental shops. And they open up to the streets, and the parking area is mostly underground. And so Vancouverism also depends on high density building and development, which sets aside a piece of land to be created into a park. And the main critique with Vancouverism currently is still affordability of housing. Whenever new houses go on the market in Vancouverism based areas of development, a lot of them would be bought out by wealthy foreigners instead of locals. So to fight this issue, Vancouver has made a 20% tax on foreigners, on foreign home buyers. And other forms of criticism are like architects just dislike the monotone image that Vancouverism creates. And so one city that has been following in the steps of Vancouver is Seattle. It's US's most smart growth progressive city, but it's still like decades away from being on Vancouver's level. And Vancouver is really just known for the image that it creates of a really well-developed urban area with a background of nature and mountains. So the main takeaways from Vancouver's growth is that the best way to prevent urban sprawl is through smart growth, which promotes growing upwards instead of outwards, meaning creating cities that would develop with high density and multi-purpose developments. Another thing would be to protect nature as well as make your own way. Currently, Vancouver is known as one of the best and most livable cities in the world. So the ideas that it's promoting with Vancouverism are really building and promoting its image to the rest of the world. So the question I want to end on is whether you think Vancouver will be able to keep up with its population growth in terms of creating housing. We know that the Housing Vancouver 10-year plan is currently going on, but how long will it work until the issue resurfaces again? And with the growth of population and the city become too dense, and will people like see it as a disadvantage and want to move out of the city because of the crowding? So I want you to think more about that, and these are my resources. So thank you all for listening. Have a nice day.